Have you ever transcribed one of the most killing, hip jazz lines from one of your heroes that you really love, and then when you go to play it, for whatever reason, you just can't get it to sound or feel as good as what they do? Like, you're literally playing it note for note, but for whatever reason, you can't get it to have that same feel. Well, I dare say that the missing ingredient is articulation. Let me show you just how much difference articulation can make. So this is a phrase from Sonny Rollins' solo on Strode Road. Now let's hear what that phrase sounds like with no articulation at all. And now compare that to this version with articulation. You hear just how much of a difference that makes? The thing about articulation on saxophone is that it's so closely related to our feel. But what exactly is feel? It's a term that gets thrown around a lot in the jazz world, but it's important to talk about because there's an important distinction between having good rhythm and having good feel. Take this metronome, for example. It's perfectly in time, but nobody would ever say that a metronome by itself has any kind of sense of feel. I think by its very nature, feel is hard to define. It's not very academic, and you quite literally have to feel it. For me, it's connected to dance and movement. If something grooves and is in the pocket, it's going to make me want to move in some kind of way. And so to better understand the connection between articulation and feel, you're first going to have to watch this. Now what you just heard was the great drummer Kenny Clarke, and I want you to take particular note of the syncopation that Kenny's accenting on the snare drum. That syncopation is the secret to making swing music dance. It has bounce and energy and forward momentum. The reason I'm showing you a drummer is because articulation is our way as saxophone players to be percussive. I like to think of it like this. Our fingers are covering the rhythm and playing things perfectly in time, and our tongue is being percussive and is creating that sense of groove and feel. Okay, now that we've established the importance of articulation, let me show you what to practice. This articulation method that I'm about to show you is one that myself and probably just about every other professional saxophone player started off with. It's the first step to start practicing jazz saxophone articulation. But after that, I'm going to show you the thing that all the great saxophone players have done to take their articulation to the next level. Now, this style of articulation that I'm about to show you is called back-tonguing. And the key premise to back-tonguing is that you articulate all of the offbeats. It's going to feel a little clunky and unnatural at first, but you're going to have to trust the process. It's essential that we get used to accenting the offbeats instead of the downbeats. I hear it all the time with beginner saxophone players, accenting the downbeats like this. But we want to try and do the opposite of that. So in your head, when you're back-tonguing, I want you to think ha, ta, ha, ta, ha, ta. The ha is your downbeat, and the ta is your tongued note, the offbeat. Should sound a little like this. Now, I've got another trick that's going to help a lot. A common mistake that I see with a lot of students is that even when they learn to back-tongue, they're still trying to generate the swing through their note lengths. And it's really, really obvious when we start picking up the tempo. And that just sounds terrible. So what you want to do is actually straighten out the notes, play them straight, and let your articulation generate the swing. So my suggestion with back-tonguing is to practice it with your scales and to build up the tempo little bit by little bit and get it to the point where you don't have to think about it at all. And then once you're comfortable back-tonguing your scales, the next exercise is to do some controlled improvising. I'm a huge advocate for controlled improvising because I think it helps bridge the gap between strict and rigorous exercises and real improvising. So what you're going to do is throw on a metronome or a drum play along and you're going to freely improvise. Play whatever notes you want, but you're going to back tongue as you do it. And as you get more and more comfortable, feel free to get more creative with the rhythms, because the whole idea is that we're trying to use this technique when we're actually improvising. Okay, now that we've got a technical foundation and we've covered all the basics, let's talk about how we can start to ramp things up from here. So I've just taught you the importance of articulating all the offbeats, but now I sort of want you to forget all of that. As you start to listen to more and more great saxophone players, you'll hear that they're not exclusively articulating offbeats. They're actually tonguing whatever notes they want. So we use the tongue to accent and highlight the notes that we want to bring out above the other notes in our phrases. Check out this phrase from Charlie Parker on Now's the Time. So you can hear in this phrase that Bird is accenting quite a lot of on-beats, but the reason it works so well is because those notes that he's accenting are the high points of the phrase. They're literally the highest notes. Now from this point onwards, improving our articulation is very similar to our process of how we gain and work on new language. It's going to take a lot of listening and a lot of copying and imitating, because from here, there's no one set way. There are so many different approaches, so many different styles. Every great saxophone player sounds slightly different with their articulation, and they will choose to accent different notes within their phrases. So you get to kind of choose your own adventure from here. Now, seeing as there are so many different articulation approaches, I thought it'd be good to show you a couple of clips that I think are really interesting from a couple of really great saxophone players, and show you how I go about listening to them and trying to play along and emulate the articulation in the clips. Okay, so that first clip was Sonny Rollins live in Denmark. And to me, Sonny is one of the most percussive saxophonists ever. He really punches the notes that he wants to accent. He also gets this really great contrast between longer notes and then these really short staccato notes which pop out of the phrase. Now, when it comes to trying to grasp articulation in a recording, I find the most effective tool is to sing along and then to try and copy the articulations that I'm hearing with my own tongue as I'm singing. You can hear those staccato notes in there, right? And also okay, so this second clip is Stan Getz. And it's immediately noticeable how legato Stan is compared to Sonny. His eighth notes have this gliding, sort of bouncy feel, and it just goes to show that you really don't have to force it or overdo the articulations. I also chose this specific phrase to show you the beats that he's accenting. Similarly to the Charlie Parker phrase from before, Stan's accenting the peaks of the phrase, and as you transcribe more and more, you'll hear that that is a very, very common thing to do. Then if we fast forward to modern day saxophone players, we can hear an even greater range of articulation styles. So this next clip is Walter Smith III on an outtake of I'll Be Seeing You. It's so good. So one thing that makes Walter's articulation so awesome is instead of just having ta and then ha, the tongued and then the slurred notes, we get all these unique syllables to create sounds that are somewhere in between the two. Like in this phrase, instead of going ta ha ta and using regular articulated and slurred notes, he's using an n sound, an n syllable, to sort of mute the notes in between the tongued ones. So he's going da n da n da 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 n da n do da. And then in this phrase, so he's articulating every single note in that phrase, but rather than it sounding like ta 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 ta, he's sort of using a more muted sound again, sort of an n-ish syllable, kind of like using the side of the tongue. And what it does is it gives that sort of gentle push to each note, da 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 da. And it really kind of makes it swing and feel good. Okay, so the final clip that I want to show you is from Ben Wendel's new record, Understory, and this is from the track Lou. So the articulation that I want to talk about from this one is very similar to the previous clip, where we're muting the sound, but we're using the tongue to create a hard cutoff, and it gives this short, sharp, staccato note. Think of it like opening and closing a valve. So we have our reed here and our tongue here, and there's this back pressure of air behind it. And as soon as you move your tongue, the air goes through and it creates a sound. And then we give it a hard cutoff by putting our tongue back on the reed. So we get this dut 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 don't dut 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 don't dut 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 dut. So I've shown you those 4 clips just to give you an idea of just how many articulation styles and approaches there are. And there's so much more to it than just which notes are being accented. You know, there's all these different syllables and styles and note lengths and things that are really unique to every single saxophone player. But the only way to start developing these more advanced articulations is to listen and then sing along, play along, and just really absorb as much as you can through transcribing. And if you want to learn more about how to effectively transcribe, check out this video. Now, I really do hope you got something valuable out of this video today. And if you did, hopefully I'll see you next time.